Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling live stream review show with myself, Mike, and Sloth today. Very different emotions from about 3 days ago when we beat Spurs, which has been absolutely hammered 5-0. Could have been more, probably should have been more. And yeah, just a absolutely diabolical performance. So I guess it's our job to break it down and talk about what the hell just happened there, because it was a disaster. Other than the opening kind of 5-10 minutes, it was. And I guess the only thing to highlight was the couple changes from midweek against Spurs, which is obviously forced with Emerson and Alvarez out because of illness, and then Cresswell and Fornals came in. So, Sloth, I know you watched the whole thing the whole way through. I turned it off after 4-0. Mike, I know you managed to avoid it, which is definitely for the best. So
yeah, we're both envious.
Yeah, but talk to me.
Parenting is a great way of getting out of stuff.
Yeah, you're lucky. You're a lucky guy today, Mike. 100%. But,
today I'm lucky.
Honestly, yeah. But I've been the first kind of 10 minutes of the match. We actually played pretty well. We were pressing high up. We controlled the ball. Were you a bit like, okay, this should be all right from here, Sloth? Or did you kind of expect us to kind of sink backwards and give Fulham more of the ball and stop playing how we did start?
I fully expected that. Like we never. We were saying in the pre-chat just now while we were waiting to set it all up. When was the last time we actually bossed a game for 90 minutes? Can any of you remember that? And you know, I'm talking about a Premier League game as well here, not against a European side who, let's face it, weren't the best quality. When did we last boss a Premier League game?
Lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. We were absolutely abysmal today, and I looked at that starting lineup, and I just thought Cresswell and Aguerd on the same side is risky, but Cresswell and Aguerd with Fornals in front of them is just there's three brain dead players there. There's actually no. I'm going to be fair to Fornals. There's two brain dead players there, but there's one player who doesn't really have legs, and then there's another player in front of him who has legs, but they're very small legs, and he can't run very fast. Cresswell's diabolical. So how he's anywhere near our starting lineup, and why we're not saying to someone like Johnson, look, you're playing for a new contract, mate. You go out and put in a performance that makes us think you should be around, because if you want 50 grand a week, or if you want starting wages, go out and prove it. Why are we playing Cresswell when he doesn't want to be here? He's thrown his toys out the pram in the summer. What is the point? He is a waste of a shirt at the moment, and that performance in the first half just proved that. He was absolutely abysmal. I pray to God Leon have no way of getting any of that game on any sort of streaming platform or coverage, because Benrahma and Aguerd, quite frankly, need to be left in that river. They need to be left in the Thames. They were that bad today. I would genuinely have rather Moyes put his shorts on.
No, it was terrible.
I'm going to go at the bat.
Well, we're not going to go into break down every goal, because I think everyone saw what happened. You know, they conceded 5 really, really poor goals.
I can remember one game this year, or one game in the Premier League, where we have completely bossed it. Now it's Sheffield United. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was the only game. And let's face it, they were horrendous.
It's not how we play, is it? It's not how we
didn't we just win that 1-0? Was that the game?
2-0.
2-0. Put some respect. Stuff. Come on.
Really convincing that. Like, you know, I'm not dismissing the result, but you cannot. Nobody can tell me that the football we've been playing recently is sustainable in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I think that's going to be the point of discussion for this, because we've had a little bit of a difference of opinion in our little chat before hopping on here. And
you put it so mildly there, Frankie.
Well, basically, my point of view was that today was not. It wasn't the same as what we've been doing. I kind of was saying, yes, we've been pretty poor as a whole. We've been getting the results, which have been good. And there's actually been some decent performances so far this season. But I think today there are a few kind of mitigating factors as to why we played as bad as we did. But I'm not excusing the way we set up with what Moyes did. But then, these guys were kind of disagreeing with me there. So it'd be interesting to see what you guys think in the chat as well.
To be honest, mate, two players with a virus is not mitigating circumstance.
No.
If two players drop out of your team and you put up such a big steaming pile of shit, what the fuck is going on with your whole team?
Oh, the monetization's gone. It's gone.
There's no monetization on this video. But yeah, I mean, my point of view was kind of, it's not, it's not just Alvarez. I think that is a big issue for us. Without a 6 in there and you're playing Ward-Prowse and Souček in midfield, obviously Paqueta came into the midfield and was walking around the whole game, gave them absolutely no cover from a defensive point of view. So they were just overlapping.
But we know
and
he's not fit. We know he supposedly got a knock. So why even pick him? Like, this is what is baffling me, is we have, there's a virus going around the camp.
We don't have any other options, though, stuff. What's the other option in that situation?
We have Johnson.
They can get some match fitness for one would be a start. That would be a good idea.
If you're gonna pick any of those players, bring them on. Like, bring them on at certain points in the game to get them match fitness. Don't just expect Aaron Cresswell, of all people, to be able to play a Premier League 45 minutes of football, because he wasn't able to do that last season. He barely was able to do that the season before. He wasn't able to play 90 minutes of Premier League football for any period of the last season. He is a waste of a shirt.
I think what annoyed me today was, especially being 3-0 down at half time, and Moyes, this was on 100% on Moyes, his decision was to change it and go to a back 3 when Fulham were completely dominating possession, and it just gave them so much more space, which is why when the 4th goal went in, I turned it off, because it was just, there's literally no point in watching it at that point.
He will say that we only lost the second half 2-0.
Yep, that is true. But
it's a better second half performance, isn't it?
Our kind of discussion was all about how Moyes needs to take a lot of responsibility for today, and that was where the disagreement came in. Now, I would argue that the football in recent weeks has not been sustainable. He is supposedly a defensive coach, and yet we shipped 5 today. We were very, very fortunate not to ship more goals against Spurs. If bloody Feathers McGraw, who came on for Tottenham Hotspur,
had one chance. Spurs had one other chance, though. It wasn't like a big
thing. I'd say one clear-cut chance. They made
if Richarlison had anything other than a 50p head, we wouldn't have taken 3 points from that game. Like, it's.
But we still would have taken a point. Like, it's not.
No, we don't potentially would have, because we don't.
No. It's like the point that you guys brought up against Brighton. It was like, we conceded so many chances against Brighton. Yes, we did, but we also created a lot. Like, our XG was higher than theirs, and we were 3-0 up at that point.
Yes,
completely dominated them in that regard.
It's masking the fact that Areola made some world-class saves in that game, and also the fact that the counter-attacking football worked because we had quality service. Today, Ben Rama's not looked that player or looked like he's even been able to kick up. He looks like he's been replaced by someone else. Like, the idea that he could deliver the cross to Bowen today, totally miles apart from where he needs to be. We didn't dominate that game. We were quite happy to go back there and sit back and catch them on the break, which is fine. But you can't do that every single week, because if you do that against Fulham, who, as I mentioned in the breakdown, are very physical, they're quick, and they're good in the air, you're going to get caught out. And when Aguerd is as bad in the air as he is, we're not going to go too much into him, because, to be honest, I would be using every expletive under the sun to describe his recent defensive performances. But he's so bad in the air. You've got Raul Jimenez up against him. I know Mavropanos came on and didn't cover himself in glory, but why on earth are you playing someone who cannot read a ball and read the flight of the ball against one of the best headers we know in the Premier League? It's obscene, and yet we're going, but this is a bit of a one-off. No, we concede so many chances against so many teams. We conceded 3 goals against Brentford. We conceded a goal against Burnley, and we were very lucky that they didn't score more goals. We keep going on about, he's a defensive coach and he keeps getting these teams on the break. His luck's going to run out. It ran out today, and that's why we conceded so many goals.
We've had 1 clean sheet, as you mentioned. That was against Sheffield United, and on average, we're conceding 2 goals a game. So, again, I completely agree. Defensively, it's been really, really poor. I'm just saying in terms of application today and effort from the players, because I think they put a lot into Thursday night. There's obviously something going around in the camp with the virus. But again, that comes down to Moyes having to change things. He's got players.
When's their rest? Where's the rotation? Where's the competition in the squad to keep these players fit and to safeguard against this? We've been saying it for ages, but when you give players like Cresswell a chance to come back into the team, when you give players like Ogbonna a contract extension when he really should have been out the door in the summer because he is not Premier League level, and when you give players like Fornals the chance to stay around instead of saying, look, thank you so much for your service, you're a club hero, the fans love you, but we're going to look to go in a different direction and we're going to look to go in a different way. What is the point? Why are you keeping Cornet around if you're not going to play him? You're just losing value off him and throwing away money on wages. Get some pace in. The recruitment system at this club is completely and utterly baffling. And Tim Steidten came in and did a really good job bringing players in. But when Moyes' top target was the centre-back who can't head a ball, and we're looking at him keeping a lot on the likes of Cresswell, what is he doing in the transfer market? Because is he really the one who's attracting players like Paqueta? Is he really the one who's getting the best out of players like Kudus? Or is it someone else? Or is it just the fact that we're relying on their moments of brilliance? And Bowen
said no to like Ronaldo this summer. A left back, absolutely terrifying. Yes, he's playing left wing back at Bayern. Bayer. However, he can play left back. He's done it for years as a Barcelona youth before they obviously going on Benfica, playing exceptionally well. He can play as a left back. He's very much like an Emerson. However, he was reportedly rejected as an option, and you think he's rejected? However, as a free, Cresswell is kept. The mind really does boggle. Also, we've got a young kid in Charles. Why not play him ahead of Cresswell?
I would genuinely have put Johnson there and said, look, Johnson's not great, but when his contract is ticking down and he actually has something to play for, why are you not trying to get the best out of him? Why are you giving Cresswell even a second chance to put on the shirt when he offers nothing on the pitch anymore?
Because he's vice captain.
Why is that a decision?
Question from the chat here for you both here from Ben. How many performances this season have you enjoyed? Not necessarily a result, but the performances. So there you go, guys.
I enjoyed the Brighton game. And, I think that was the only game that I can really remember where I think we looked like we had a plan for 90 minutes. We got very, very fortunate against Chelsea in some departments.
He was getting tanked.
We went down to 10 men, right?
Yeah, but we could have easily conceded goals against Chelsea. And look, we didn't dominate that game. Let's not get that mixed up. It was a great result and a great day, but there's a difference between dominating a match and completely controlling it and enjoying a game of football we won. I loved the Spurs game, but if they have Harry Kane in that squad, I think we don't even stand a chance. We would have the same first half that we did against Fulham today.
Yeah, I think Brighton for me is the same. It's the one game that I have enjoyed. I absolutely hated the last 10, 15 minutes because we went back into everyone behind the ball, conceded chance after chance. If it weren't for Areola, we could have drawn or lost that. Because let's face it, West Ham of the last few seasons have lost that game in the exact same manner against Brighton. And the one game that's probably I think everyone would say they really enjoyed. However, I didn't bloody watch the game was when we beat Arsenal 3-1 in the cup and we absolutely smashed them. Like that's probably one of the games where you would actually say, what a great game. However, I can't sit here with hand on heart and say we've played great football all season. For me,
we haven't.
In every game I've been so frustrated and I don't think we played particularly well. Results have this incredible way of masking what's actually happening because you concentrate and fixate on, we got the result and that's the main thing. As long as good teams, they can play badly and they win. And it's this weird self-fulfilling prophecy where we start to go, maybe we're a good team though, because we're not playing well, but we're winning. So maybe we are a good team. We just need it to click. And we start to make these excuses. We start to make these concessions. And then when we lose, we all lose our minds because we're like, well, that's terrible. We should be doing that. It's embarrassing. It's like, well, no, actually, sit back a moment, actually look at it. Maybe this has been coming. Maybe this is actually just all of those deficiencies in those games have come to roost in one game. And the capitulation is something that was always there. However, we've been fortunate enough to ride our luck, have a little bit of luck, maybe have an individual put out a performance that saves us, like the Burnley game. Kudus, that had a great game. The last few minutes of the game, the 2 crosses that he put in. Areola against Brighton, had he not had a worldie of a game, we might not have, we potentially could have drawn or even lost that game, and the amount of chances we conceded towards the end. And there are other games when you look at individuals, even Nottingham Forest. We didn't play until we went 1-0 down. Again, we constantly, why do we only play when we go behind? It's because we start with a negative tactic. And this is what I mean. It's we start to then feed into this, sometimes this concept of good teams win when they're not playing well. And we've not played well in a lot of games, but we've won. And so this kind of idea then starts to perpetuate. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but for some people that then starts to perpetuate, well, we must be a good team. We beat winning these teams. We're not playing well, but we're finding a way. That's what good teams do. And maybe it's giving people a false sense of where we actually are. I'm not saying that we're amazing. I'm not saying that we're bad. We're like really bad, but I don't think we're even.
So where does the blame lie for something like today? Because against Spurs, we set up in a pretty similar way, and the first half was pretty poor, but the second half, the effort that was there, people were kind of committed to what the role was doing. Today, there was no commitment to that. Players were just walking around the pitch. How much of that has to go on to Moyes in that situation? Because the players still have to go and do what the manager's instructed.
It'll be both, right? I think if you win, you win as a team. So if you win, the manager's praised, the players are praised. If you lose, the players are questioned. So is the manager. Even if there's an individual mistake, sometimes those individual mistakes become because of certain inconsistencies, certain attitudes that are allowed to perpetuate in the game that result in. So like the Mavropanos, that lazy pass he made, that's because the players were allowed to be lazy in that game. So all of them are in it together, the manager, the coaching staff, the players. So if the manager is praising the players are praised when we win, you can't then just criticise the players when we lose. So Moyes has to take it. And also, ultimately, at the end of the day, he picks the 11 players. He puts them on the pitch. He sets the tactics. So if those tactics are not working with that 11 that he's put on the pitch, that is arguably his fault. They have some level of responsibility, but ultimately that's him. If he then makes changes and it still doesn't improve, that's still on the manager. Again, players have to take responsibility. I'm not saying that they're not responsible, but it's a collective problem. And in football, there comes a point where you maybe start to look at it, and I think what's the stat? We conceding 2 goals a game. I think that was what it was under Bilic, and we sacked Bilic when we were in that kind of run. We just had better results, and we managed to get some wins as opposed to, getting.
Well, after today, we've conceded 30 goals from 16 games, which is joint 4th or 5th worst in the league. Which is, like we've mentioned many times before, we're meant to be a team that's meant to be defensively resolute and, compact and hard to break down. That seems to have completely gone this year. And, like you mentioned, we are conceding way too many chances. And today was just an accumulation of that. It all kind of burst in one go. And, as I mentioned before, it could have been a lot more than 5. They were getting in behind us so easily. We kind of just, especially in the first half, we just sat on the edge of our box. Polina was just dictating from about 18 yards out. That was how their first goal came about. So as much as we'll point towards Aged for not, picking up his man, but there's so many things before that. It was like Souček giving the ball away when we had it. There was so many different elements to it. And that's where I think we have our biggest issue, because we actually look very good when we're kind of confident with the ball and, players are moving around. You've got Kudus, Bowen, Paqueta linking up, which is what we saw against Spurs in the second half. I thought we were very good on the ball. But today it was just back to the same thing where Aged's hoofing it down the line. No one's there. Kufau does the same thing. Zuma was doing it. Souček kind of clears it round. Even Ward-Prowse wasn't good on the ball today.
So then got to say, if Aged is constantly putting the ball, say, in a channel and constantly putting the ball into that channel, and Kufau is constantly putting the ball into that channel, no one's there. That tells me if Aged and Kufau were told to make that play.
I just think we didn't have a midfield option today. Today, we just didn't have someone dropping in and getting the ball.
But that's on our terrible recruitment as well. I saw someone say about Downs. Oh, we should look to get Downs back in January. Downs not going to have an impact on that game. No. Don't get me wrong. I like the guy, and I would like him to be world class. Of course I would, but I don't watch that game and think, do you know what this is really crying out for? Downs, who was played a lot at centre attacking midfield last season, to come in and then feature against Palhinha, who was linked with Bayern Munich. You need someone far, far better in that role. Paqueta was not good today. I thought he was abysmal. He was anonymous. And it kind of made me think, well, we know he had a knock. We know the fitness. There's question marks over his fitness. Why are you picking him? Why are you not saying, right, we're going to drop him to the bench, or we're going to... Yeah, it's running them into the ground. And there's a difference between rotating players and just asking them to work hard, and then just mind-numbingly bad decisions in terms of picking the same players or picking inept players in that position.
So where do we go from here, lads? Because we've kind of said, I think this will be Moyes' last season. You know, contract's up at the end of the year. Hopefully we're looking and planning towards the summer for something long term. And, you know, this year's kind of like, okay, do as good as we can. We've got European football. Is that what it now comes down to now? We have to focus on the Europa League and making sure on Thursday night we top the group, because if we come second in that group, there's going to be a lot of good teams coming down from the Champions League as well. And also, you know, there's some really, really tough opposition in the Europa League this year, you know, Liverpool being one of the main examples of that. So where do we go from here? You know, it's such a big loss after such a high. How does Moyes now kind of get the players back together and get past this, moving towards, you know, a really important game on Thursday night?
We have to top the group. If we don't top the group, we are in a potentially calamitous season, like a calamitous month or so, where we could see ourselves out of the Europa League, or we at least see an incredibly tough draw, and then we see our season capitulate. Now, January is a huge opportunity for us to go out and actually make some statements, but we are already hearing the poverty cup being shaken by the club and saying, there's not much budget, you know, there's not much budget. Ooh, come on, guys. You know?
To be fair, FFP, we need to be careful with FFP. Otherwise, we're going to end up...
Why said at the start of the season,
why weren't we accepting offers for players like Cresswell in the summer? Get them off the wage bill. Get these players. I'm not saying they're going to attract big money,
because then you have to recruit and replace those players. That's the issue.
Grimaldo was a free transfer, for example. You could have sold Cresswell for £3 million. That £3 million probably would have covered maybe.
But then you have to be careful with the homegrown stuff as well. Like I'm agreeing we need to do a lot better in recruitment, but there was a lot to do in the summer.
But then why did we let Downs go? Why did we let Downs go? Keep him for that homegrown number. It's just really poor management, and it's, you know, it's feeding Peter to pay Paul. It's ridiculous. It's the mismanagement at so many levels of this club is really frustrating, because we have the chance to capitalize on this. And I sound like such a stuck record when we reach this point in the season, or when we're in Europe, because we have a chance to capitalize. We have a chance to move forward as a club, and we just don't seem to do anything. I wouldn't be surprised if we offer Cresswell a contract extension. And I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if we keep old Bonner around for another season, because there's nothing that I'm seeing from us in terms of ambition to go out and really step things up. You know, Kudus is great, but we basically just spent the Declan Rice money. Where's the ambition? There's no sort of method recruitment-wise.
What's scaring me is, you know, and we do look at some expected stats sometimes, and, you know, you can take it with a pinch of salt, but we're pretty much on par with expected goals against with goals conceded. I think our expected goals against is like 30.26, and we've conceded 30 goals, which is kind of the issue, because if you're expected and you are conceding so many goals, it's not like we've got unlucky and, you know, conceded more than we should have. We're actually on par defensively with how we should have been this season, which is really poor.
Moyes' top target Moyes' top target for that centre-back area was Aguerd. And he's been, you know, the worst centre-back this season, in my opinion.
We were all on board with that signing.
We were, because we saw his form in Rennes, and we thought, you know, that's a player who's really going to come in and suit us. Now, that player's still there. You know, he's not just suddenly disappeared, but Moyes' coaching clearly isn't there, because if if it
That's
was,
not a coaching thing, though. He's just left his man how many times now?
if
How is that a coaching thing?
if it's not a coaching thing, why is he in the starting
We're
11?
not playing to his strengths, but we
If
don't
it's
have any
not-
other
if
options.
it's not if it's not a coaching thing,
What's
why
our
is
other
he in the start?
option? What's our other
Why
option there?
Mavropanos?
He just made a mistake against Palace. Like, they're both doing it.
Yeah. So why are they doing
Also-
that? Why are they making those stupid decisions not to challenge?
That
him?
is not on
It's-
Moyes. What?
No,
Yes,
hang
it
on,
is.
No, it is not.
If players keep making mistakes, that is on a manager because one,
No way
they
is that
really
on
aren't
Moyes.
being questioned as to why they're making mistakes. Two, they're getting picked despite making those mistakes. And the other
So
thing
who
is,
do you pick then? Who do you pick instead of Aged? Because we all sat here and said we'd give Aged one more game.
But I wouldn't have even kept Ogbonna. Like, that's the thing, because we looked at him and go, oh, who we got on the bench? We got Ogbonna. I love him, but bloody hell, he's not Premier League level. And why have we kept him around? Because he's not homegrown. Like, he's not adding anything to the squad in any way other than, he's Ogbonna and we all love him. Like, he adds nothing to any starting 11. He certainly doesn't make it into any other Premier League starting 11.
like Tilo,
Look, I get a lot of the stuff around Moyes and how we set up, and we're not playing to someone like Aged's strengths. He'd be a lot better in a possession-based team, but you can't pin that like those individual mistakes on Moyes, like Mavropanos against Crystal Palace the other
If it
day.
was the occasional individual mistake, I wouldn't start to question the manager. But when those mistakes are consistently happening, there's something systemic happening. There's the system or the attitude. Well, let's be honest, right? If you're in a team where there's no accountability, you're going to make mistakes because you ain't going to care if you make them, or your mindset is going to be, oh no, I made a mistake. Oh well, it's a systemic problem. You start to look at it as maybe it is a systemic problem. If mistakes are consistently happening and those players are not being punished and in fact arguably being rewarded by continually being picked, then there are wider questions as to, well, what is happening? Why are players able to make these mistakes and not be removed from the situation? Why are they continually able to play?
If he is a defensive coach,
you can't.
So
always
who do you play? So Aged's made mistakes. Who comes in? Mavropanos. Mavropanos has made a mistake. Who comes in?
Mavropanos has made a mistake. Mavropanos has made a mistake partly because that's how he's been told to play and control the back line, but also critically, he's not been given match time. He's not been given that rotation to come in, get the feel, and at least get 20 minutes here and there. At least get yourself up to fitness where you're not so off the pace that you think, I'm just going to underhit this pass. It's ridiculous. Like the idea that we can't rotate players, or Moyes going, oh well, Paquette has been standout at times this season. I can't drop him. He's got a knock. Why are you picking him? Why are you risking him? He offered nothing today. The fact he wasn't hauled off earlier is embarrassing.
But then every player was off it. Like Kudus was off it. Like Bowen was off it.
But what they do is they offer the pace to at least get out. And if Moyes is going to hit those channels and those passes, he's going to tell players like Aguerd or Mavropanos to hit those balls into channels. You need those players. You don't need a Paquette to do that because he can't chase that ball. He's the one who'll play
those balls. He's the one that will make something happen.
We've just said that Aguerd and Mavropanos are also told to hit those balls. So it's not just Paquette who plays those balls. James Ward-Prowse can do it. If he's here for anything, it's supposed to be his service.
The goal against Palace, that pass that he hit was the reason why he's brought in. But when you play him deeper, you lose. Essentially, when you play him deeper, you get Mark Noble. And as we all love Mark Noble, we would also admit he was one of those most incredibly infuriating players, because unless it was one of those blood and thunder games where you wanted Noble, because he would go crashing in, he'd get the crowd up because he would make those challenges, get the players going and make sure that he could be slow in possession. He could stop play, would sometimes be more sideways than forward passing. He'd make a few ranging passes. And we've seen all season, whenever we've seen James Ward-Prowse in that kind of double pivot and playing deeper, he's just not the same player. The moment he's allowed to be maybe the more further forward of them, he's much quicker with his passing. He's more adventurous with his passing because he's in a position where he has to be. You tend to have less time. So he's having to try and play a bit more on the cuff, which has resulted in him getting more goals in open play than I think he's probably ever scored. And been great with his assists. And he's been far better for us, and also been arguably the metronome for us in our pressing. So it's when you play players then deeper, we're just not getting the results. And again, I know there's the illness, but again, I feel like it's just making concessions. It's there's illnesses, but only 2 players were out. I know someone to go Antonio, but Antonio hasn't been on form, and Bowen's been playing brilliantly. You can't turn around 1 week and say, "Boy, don't need Antonio because I'm Bowen," and when we lose, we go, we need the likes of Antonio.
But why aren't we playing Cornet? If Cornet came on, got an assist, where's his reward for that? Where's the okay? Right, you're going to get 20 minutes now. You're going to get a bit more time. Show me what you can do. If you're going to give Cresswell time, and we know Cornet can play left back, what are we doing? There's no
back if you go into a back five.
Yeah, what are you doing? If you're going to go into that back five, perfect. He's a left wing back. He can do that. But there just seems to be no real coaching system in place, because if there was, we'd at least look a bit more solid defensively. You can forgive errors, as Mike said. Every so often, a silly error you can forgive. But when a team constantly concedes chances, as many chances as we do, you've got to put that down to the coaching at some point. It's not just a case of he gets off scot-free because, sometimes we win games. It's also a case of, if we win those games, how many chances did we concede? Did we look under pressure at times? And were we dominating the game? There's more than just the result. And all the chickens came home to roost today. It was a real clusterfuck of a situation.
I find it interesting that the week where Moyes essentially completely backtracked on what he said previously about us thinking like a big team, acting like a big team, which arguably means having aspirations for top 6. Whether you believe it or not, whether you think your club would get there, you at least have those aspirations. So now, well, that's our aim. The comments after, I think, the Spurs game and the press conference prior to this one was, top 6 is probably too far for us. Look at the teams above us. And it's like, hang on, but you set expectations for us. You've said to us as fans, you want certain things. And this is why I think a lot of people really back Moyes. And I think in some cases it's starting now to turn into, it's more about Moyes than it is actually about West Ham. It's about being, I'm a Moyes supporter, rather than being, I'm a West Ham supporter who happens to really enjoy and like our manager. You can, I've got no problem with anyone likes Moyes. It's fine. But if you're unable to then kind of follow a train of his own words being contradicted and his own actions being a contradiction, and then I then have to question, is like, are you being blinkered? Are you deliberately trying to avoid what he's saying and so on? Or are you just that blissfully happy about what's going on with West Ham in terms of your position and some of the results that we get, that you're willing to kind of compensate? And I don't think you can turn around for over a year when we were finishing 6th and 7th, over that kind of 2-year period, keep telling fans we need to think like a big club, we need to act like a big club because we can't be a big club. And then now, after just winning a European trophy, and we're 9th, we're like 3 points off of 6th at the time, and then turning around going, I think 6th is too much for us. I don't think we should.
I think that's a big issue where, like you mentioned, the mentality kind of comes from the manager. And if you hear your manager saying that before the game, where it's like, probably out of our reach, Aston Villa, Newcastle, all these teams doing pretty good. Like we should definitely be in that conversation. We should be in that conversation with the money we've spent and also the players that we've got. I don't think our squad's much worse than saying Aston Villa.
Aston Villa last year were fighting relegation after the season. They brought in Unai Emery, and the first thing he's coming to saying that I want to get this club into Europe. Like, there's no messing. It's no. These are my aspirations. This is the type of manager I am. I don't look at anything else to me is almost failure. And this is my aims to put this club in this piece. We are perpetually underselling. Now, again, we've said this constantly, depending on what side of the argument you are with Moyes, you're going to have two perspectives on what he said. They're going to be ones that are so anti-Moyes that regardless, going to go, look, that just shows a weak-minded mentality and a weak manager. Those that are hardened supporters will go, that's him challenging his squad. This is where I
start to feel a bit sorry for David Moyes in this situation, because what we've got now is basically fans, it's going to be every week, Moyes was to blame if we don't win. If we do win, it was a very good performance. Moyes was kind of setting us up really well. So that's the issue now. It's not going to be...
then they don't understand football. And I might get a bit of flack for that, but they don't understand football.
But then
You
we're
know,
sat here like blaming Moyes for individual errors,
I-
which I will
I'm
not.
No. We're saying
No.
consistent
Oh,
errors
Mike,
of showing a
Mike,
systematic problem.
That is what happens.
No,
That is
let's
what happens.
let's get this right, okay? Players making errors is fine, but players consistently making errors when you're supposed to be the defensive coach and they are making defensive errors is unacceptable. There is no marked improvement in our defending when he is supposed to be a defensive coach. We consistently soak up pressure. Our midfield do not offer a shield to stop any of us getting. Today, it was
We didn't have an
porous.
anchor, that's why today.
Okay, but we don't have an anchor, so why haven't we done that? You just mentioned that. You just mentioned Aston Villa.
But this is what I'm
okay?
saying, where you need to look at a game as well. Like today, look at the amount, like Paqueta, for example,
also
walking,
look at
not
every
giving
game.
any support at all.
So you take them off, you change it, you make sure that you are keeping these players fresh, and
But it wasn't just him walking. This is
but
my
you
point
have
from
a
today.
sense of you have a sense of competition in the squad. And one thing I'm going to say just before, like you mentioned Aston Villa. Okay, Aston Villa have Dendoncker, they have Kamara, they have Luis, all who can play in that six. They then have Tielemans, they have McGinn, who can play in that midfield area. Okay, that is a far, far better centre mid than we have. Okay, now look out on the wings. They have Diaby, who was one of the most informed players in Europe last season. He was fantastic. Okay, Leon Bailey. Now I don't know. Now I don't know where Leon Bailey's form has come in, but he was useless the season before, and now Unai Emery has come in. He looks completely different. So don't tell me that players can't be coached differently and get results.
I never said that they couldn't be. Moyes has made a lot of players better in his time.
But we're talking about defensively. If he's supposed to be a defensive coach, you know, he needs to get results
defensively. Pointing out Bailey to suit the argument isn't defensively. Moyes improved loads of players.
Tyrone Mings is another example of that. Tyrone Mings is an example of that. Players, you look at someone, you know, I know they were injury hit, but even look at someone like Pau Torres who's come in and is playing really, really well. To contrast Diego Carlos and Pau Torres to someone like Neafa Gued, who came in for big money and has looked absolutely awful for the majority of his time here, you know, there's no comparison. It's night and day. But Unai Emery plays the system and he coaches them, he rotates them, and he keeps the competition in there. They have got so much more squad depth than us, and we just have very little squad depth. If Bowen gets injured or if Kudus gets injured at AFCON, we are royally screwed, because who's going to get those goals? Mikel Antonio isn't going to get those goals, because the most he's got is 11 in a season. It's ridiculous that we are relying on players who do not produce, and we are relying on a thin squad that does not have the quality to push for these places. Now, look, Moyes deserves praise for overachieving at times, but when you are a defensive coach and your defense is porous, and the midfield is also to blame for that, the central defensive mid area has not been sorted. You're playing a central defensive mid as a central attacking midfielder in Downs, and yet you're going, he's not really having the impact I want. What are you doing? What are you doing? Because it's not working.
Right, we're going to leave it there because we can just talk about West Ham like this all day.
Let's end on a positive.
No, I mean, for me,
subscribe.
For me, it's a mix. I think Moyes is overly criticised at times, but I also do agree that there's a lot of flaws with what he's doing at the moment and how we're setting up and the mentality that we currently have.
For 18 months, not at the moment. I think that's been far too kind to Moyes. Last season, the form was shocking to the point of, regardless of winning the trophy, he shouldn't have been employed. Results have masked a lot of problems this season. I can't sit here and justify and say we've been great in all of these games, because for me, we've probably only been good in 2 or 3 at most. And
no, we have been poor.
Again, but let's face it, we're going to have to suffer this indignity for the entire season, unless things go so catastrophically wrong in Europa League, where we get spanked over 2 legs, maybe against a team. If we go out in both cups and get absolutely spanked and our season really peters, nothing will happen. Moyes is here for the duration unless he puts such a roadblock in January and the board actually backs Stuyton. Because if they back Stuyton and he categorically puts blocks on players because he doesn't want them or doesn't rate them, bearing in mind he's not going to be there next season and these are players that they want to build around, that is the only way he is gone. But it's going to take some absolute thrashings for it to happen if people want Moyes gone, because quite frankly, he's here for the season because the board won't act. Because why would you pay someone out of a few million quid when they're going to go for nothing in the summer?
Yeah, I think we saw as well last season, as we were mentioning it, that he should have probably got sacked when, you know, when we were calling for it to happen. It didn't happen. We took that gamble and it paid off in the end because we survived and won the trophy, but it could have gone very differently. And like you mentioned this season, results have masked a lot of what we've been doing on the performance side. So eventually it will catch up to you. So there does need to be a change on that front. And we've got so many games coming up now throughout December and January that it's going to be key to rotation. And also, like you mentioned, Slough there, getting the best out of players and making sure we are set up in the correct way. So hopefully we can top the group on Thursday night. As bad as today was, we go again in a few days. So I guess we just have to hope for a different performance on Thursday night and then take that confidence into the Wolves match next Sunday in the Premier League. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's stream. Make sure to leave a like, comment down below in the comment section as well. Let us know your thoughts on the game and how the season's going so far, because we're nearly at the midway point and we'll likely do a midway season review, which I'm pretty sure will be pretty similar to today. So yeah, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. And lads, until next one.
Come on, you
Come on, you
Irons.
Irons.